Hello everyone, we're now on our second lesson of our Holocaust unit, and this lesson is all about membership within the Nazi Party and membership of joining the movement in persecuting Jewish people within Germany. And today we're going to be answering, why did ordinary Germans choose to join the Nazis? And before we get started, something we need to keep in mind is not all Germans were Nazis. And we have to view these two groups as separate entities. Germans are people who are born in Germany and they potentially speak German. They live in Germany. Nazis were people who believed in the Nazis' values, and these values were of racial superiority, taking land from the Treaty of Versailles. It's very different to being a German person. In this case, many Germans decided to become Nazis, but just remember, not all Germans were part of the Nazi Party. Aryans and the Untermensch. We did mention the Untermensch in a previous lesson, but just a little refresh for us. Aryan Germans were considered to be pure of German blood, and they could prove their lineage back a few generations by using family trees, birth records, stuff like that. What this meant is that their family did not include any other ethnicities or any other races, and from their great grandparents onward, they were purely German. It was believed that a pure Aryan German could also be determined by measurements on the face. We can see on the right-hand side a picture of a man. He's having the width of his nose, the height of his ear in relation to his eyes, all these things measured because there was a pseudoscience that believed that you could determine somebody's ethnicity based on these facial measurements. The Untermensch is a German word. It translates into subhumans or people who are inferior. This is a book that was actually published by the Nazis, all about how you can identify somebody if they're Untermensch just based on their appearances. But typically, the Untermensch included Jews, Gypsies, Poles, Serbs, any other group that the Nazis really didn't like. So they put these books into bookshops so people could buy them, study them, and they could help to identify these subhumans. Now, sometimes we are asked, what did an Aryan German look like? There's a few different features that we're going to look at here that will really show us the differences between an Aryan German and just kind of a regular German or a European at the time. So we've got a few arrows here, and these are going to be some hints for us to use. But the first one that we often think of is blonde hair. And a lot of people say, oh, that doesn't make sense. Hitler didn't have blonde hair. That's true. Hitler wasn't even German. Hitler was born in Austria. But because Hitler spoke German, he believed that he was part of the German Empire. Now, it was believed that Aryans would have blonde hair because of their Nordic ancestral roots. It was kind of believed that the, if you want to say real Germans or purist Germans, came from Scandinavia. And in Scandinavia, blonde hair and blue eyes is quite a popular trait. Being tall and being strong, this is considered to be an Aryan trait. It means you have really strong genes. Being a soldier can make you Aryan if you're going to fight for Germany. And having a Nordic brow line as well. These are all features that are considered to be pure German or Aryan. So membership of the Nazis. Now, it's really important to think in context, and we have to remember the impact of the Great Depression. In 1929, the American Wall Street crashes. This causes a lot of people to lose their jobs, lose their homes, lose money, and that's just in the US. Now, Germany was receiving money from America to try to help pay off their war debt under the Treaty of Versailles. The moment the US's stock market crashes, they take all their money back. And this leaves Germany in a really, really bad state. There's a lot of political instability, a lot of social instability in Germany. People are quite poor, and they're looking for someone to blame. Now, Germans will kind of look around and they'll say, oh, the Jews in my village are doing quite well during the Great Depression because they're bankers, they're money lenders, whatever it may be. They're going to blame Jewish people as a scapegoat. And this process of popularizing anti-Semitism is growing quite strongly between 1929 and about 1935 in Germany. Now, the Nazis are working hard to solve the crisis. The existing government, they were known as the Weimar government, Everything they did seemed to fail. They couldn't seem to fix any of the problems that Germans were facing. But Hitler was a guy who made promises but also kept them. So if the Nazi Party said, "We're going to give you work," they would make jobs for people. "We're going to provide you with relief and money," they would give that out. And if they're going to provide stability, they're going to try to change the government, overthrow it, or to become the next leading party in the Reichstag. We have a poster on the right-hand side, and this shows a man joining the Nazis and his newfound strength. So it says the worker has awoken to National Socialism. So this man here, he's essentially come to his senses and realized that Nazism is the best. And we can see how he looks really strong. He's really proud. He's quite powerful. And all of these men down here look quite weak and cowardly. We can even see one here trying to stab them in the back. There's that term that we may know, Dolchstoss, where the German army felt that they were cheated out of losing the First World War. And he even has that dagger relating back to Dolchstoss. Another reason that people joined the Nazis is they had to accept the good with the bad, and it was a means of survival. And many people who joined the Nazis knew that Hitler maybe wasn't the best person for the job, and he was a slightly dangerous character, but we have to look at it from their perspective. So imagine that you've lost your job, you've lost your home, and you've lost all of your money. You literally have nothing left to your name. Now, you could vote for the Weimar government, who are elected politicians, but they can't seem to fix the problem. Or you've heard of this guy named Hitler, who, although his methods are a bit unconventional, and perhaps, he has some violent plans later down the line, he's going to give you a job, a home, and some money in the short term. You've got to look at it as a means of survival. I could do the right thing, perhaps, and vote for the Weimar government, or I could do the best thing for me at the time. And that would be making sure that I have money in my pocket, food on the table, and a home to live in. And if that means voting for the Nazis, voting for a potentially dangerous leader such as Hitler, people were willing to do so. Does that make them a bad person? I don't think so. They're in a very difficult position where they needed to have money, food, and a home. And the Weimar government couldn't offer that, and Hitler could. So we're going to look at joining a club from a slightly different perspective. We know it feels really nice to be on a team. You're working for a common goal. You're part of something that's bigger than yourself. In the 1970s, there was a teacher named Jane Elliott in the United States. She was teaching a year 4 or a grade 3 class of students. And she wanted to try to do an experiment where she created 2 teams in her classroom. She had the blue-eyed team and she had the brown-eyed team. And in her classroom, the blue-eyed team was the best team. And the brown-eyed team, they weren't a very good team to be on. So she's going to treat these teams differently, and she's going to watch how these children react to the way that they're being treated. When you're watching the video, just think to what you know about Nazi Germany. So who might be the blue-eyed people? Who might be the brown-eyed people? And how might they be reacting? So we'll take a look at the video, try to relate this to what you already know about Nazi Germany.
It's remarkable how small a difference among people can trigger prejudice, and how hard it is to stop prejudice once it takes hold. In no time at all, we can create a totally new construction of reality to define those we dislike and fear because they are different. A provocative demonstration of the nature of prejudice took place not in a psychologist's laboratory, but at a school in Riceville, Iowa.
Would you like to try this? Yeah! Sounds like fun, doesn't it? No. Is there anything about...
After the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968, Jane Elliott, a third-grade teacher, decided to teach her class just what it means to experience arbitrary discrimination. Elliott divided her class into 2 groups, the inferior brown-eyed people and the superior blue-eyed people.
I mean, the blue-eyed people are the better people in this room. Oh, yes, they are. Blue-eyed people are smarter than brown-eyed people.
My dad isn't. I got stupid.
Is your dad brown-eyed?
Yeah.
One day you came to school and you told us that he kicked you.
He did.
Do you think a blue-eyed father would kick his son?
Yeah. My
dad's blue-eyed. He's never kicked me. Greg's dad is blue-eyed. He's never kicked him. Greg's dad is blue-eyed. He's never kicked him. did George Washington have?
Blue. Blue or
Blue.
brown.
Blue. This is a fact. Blue-eyed people are better than brown-eyed people. You brown-eyed people are not to play with the blue-eyed people on the playground because you are not as good as blue-eyed people. The brown-eyed people in this room today are going to wear collars so that we can tell from a distance what color your eyes are. So the blue-eyed people each come up and get a collar. You can choose someone to put this collar on.
And it seemed like when we were down on the bottom, everything bad was happening to us. The way they treated you, you felt like you didn't even want to try to do anything. It seemed like Mrs. Elliot was taking our best friends away from us.
What happened at recess? Were two of you boys fighting?
Yeah, Russell and John were.
What happened, John?
Russell called me names and I hit him in the gut.
What did he call you?
Brown eyes.
Did you call him brown eyes?
They always call us that. Craig and all of the boys call us brown eyes. They say, come here, brown eyes. And they were calling us blue eyes. I wasn't. Sandy and Don were. Yeah.
What's wrong with being called brown eyes?
It means that we're stupider. Well, not that. Oh, that's just the same way as other people call black people niggers. Yeah.
Is that the reason you hit him, John? Did it help? Did it stop him? Did it make you feel better inside? Did it make you feel better inside? Laugh at you when you did? I watched what had been marvelous, cooperative, wonderful, thoughtful children turn into nasty, vicious, discriminating little third graders in a space of 15 minutes. I think I learned more from the superior children than I did from the children who were considered superior, than I did from the children who were considered inferior, because their personalities changed even more than the others did.
So having looked at the video, we're going to go through some debrief questions. So our first one is, in Nazi Germany, who would the blue-eyed people be? Who would the brown-eyed people be? What happened when the tables were turned and the brown-eyed children were now the superior ones? And our last question, what does this experiment tell us about membership within the Nazi Party? So have a moment now, pause the video, go through those 4 questions and just think in your head what your answers may be, and we'll come back to have a bit of a discussion in a moment. So in Nazi Germany, who would the blue-eyed people be? Well, they would be the Aryan Germans, the members of the Nazi Party, the German citizens. They were the people who were the good guys, if you will. So what does that make the brown-eyed people? Well, those would be the Untermensch, the subhumans, the Jews, the gypsies, the communists, the political opponents, the people that the Nazis did not like. Now, what happened when the tables were turned and the brown-eyed children were superior? And this is where Jane Elliott was really surprised by the results. We and she would have expected that the brown-eyed children would treat the blue-eyed children with compassion because they understood better than anyone how terrible being persecuted and being treated unfairly was. But instead we saw the brown-eyed children exercise power, and they wanted to get revenge over the way that the blue-eyed children treated them in the previous day. And lastly, what does the experiment tell us about membership within the Nazi Party? Well, we know that not all the blue-eyed kids were mean. We also know not all the brown-eyed kids were mean either. But they were all happy to be part of their team, especially when their team was the superior one. Not all people who joined the Nazis were evil. Some joined to better their own lives. Some just wanted to be part of a winning team. Some just wanted to improve their own circumstances. It's not to say that some Nazis didn't believe in Nazism and they believed what they were doing was right. But we just have to remember to think in terms of historical context, and remembering that this was the Great Depression. This was a time when people were extremely poor and extremely desperate. and they were willing to do desperate things to try to improve their situation. The reminder now is time to continue working on your Holocaust projects and to have a look on Show My Homework, complete your quiz, and any other tasks set by your teacher.